are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
You know what? We had a bit of an aborted start to the show tonight. There are so many technical difficulties going on. Mercury must be in retrograde or something like that. Maybe it's the heat. Maybe it's the power going out all over. Who knows what it is? But I want to welcome all of you to Triversity Talk. I'm your host, Wendy Stewart, and I'm so happy to be here and be in one piece with you tonight, because what a day it's been. So we have so many great things coming up at Triversity. For those of you who don't know about Triversity, we are located in Milford, Pennsylvania on the main street, and we service the tri-state area. This Saturday night in upstate New York, we are going to the Forestburg Playhouse to see the show Prom. And there's going to be an actual prom after. And the Forestburg Playhouse has partnered with Triversity and given us tickets. So if you think you'd like to go, we do have some extra tickets available. Please reach out to Triversity Center Pride online, and you can tell us that you want some tickets to that. And then July 29th, we've partnered with the Park Service, which this is a first time, which is really great. And we are doing Paddle for Pride. It's a paddle down the Delaware. We'll also have tabling there where you can pick up information about Triversity and how the Parks Department has partnered with us on this event, and all kinds of other great stuff. And you can have yourself a nice paddle down the Delaware. That's right. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it really is fun. There's no rapids this time of year, just a couple of ripples and a lot of fish. And it's a great way to cool off on a very hot day. So I am broadcasting from New York. I know that sounds so confusing. Here she is. She's talking about Pennsylvania and the tri-state area. Yes, I am in New York City during the week because this is where I'm needed. So that's where we are tonight. And my guest tonight is actually from New York City. I was lucky enough to meet this amazing person whose name, by the way, I knew ahead of time because he's a mover and a shaker in getting stuff done in the LGBTQ plus community. Our guest tonight is the executive director of the Stonewall Community Development Corporation, creating affordable housing and health services in an aging LGBTQ population. Please welcome Paul Nagle. Yes. And there you are. We had a bit of a bumpy opening tonight. All of a sudden, it was just like, don't you love streaming? The reliability of streaming is just, it's so unique. And
it certainly has changed the way we think about punctuality for meetings.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Right. Whether things connect or not. Paul, thank you for being punctual. And thank you very much for taking time out of what is a really busy schedule, and for being here with us tonight to tell us all about the Stonewall Community Development Corporation, which you're involved with finding, well, you're involved with a lot of things, but overview in finding affordable housing for an aging LGBTQ population. Am I correct?
Yeah, and creating housing.
Creating housing, which is really, I just want to read this quote because to me this says it all. I was so lonely, I'd have the devil keep me company. I mean, when someone says that, nobody thinks about, first of all, so many people are aging. And when you're aging in the LGBTQ population, and this is something that I've thought about, but it really hit me when I was going through what you do. You don't often have like children to take care of you when you get older, or
Right.
your partner is deceased and you're alone. So what the heck do you do, right?
Yeah, and I think, as a 66-year-old man who's really beginning to face my mortality, um, there's a really strong phenomenon for me also of now friends are starting to die, not
Right.
at the same rate they did during the AIDS crisis, but it feels similar. Like during
Yeah.
the AIDS crisis, I lost all of my friends, and it's a little like there's a little bit of PTSD coming in when
Right.
we're going to funerals and losing family members and stuff.
Right. I'm really glad that you brought that up because I too am in your age group, and I've noticed, I lost my husband in March. He
Mm.
was in his 80s, but still, and I'm, 4 months
Oh,
past
boy.
that, and I don't know when it's going to feel normal, but I'm very lucky. I have a daughter, and like many of us, a ton of friends, right, who got me through this. And I have a small family. So when you're losing people, right, you're grabbing out to whoever is around you. The last thing you want to be thinking about is what's next in terms of your housing. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And I don't have to tell you, I'm sure you heard today, one of Biden's newest platforms is going to be to cap the rent increases at 5%, um, all over the country. Wouldn't that be great? Because housing is becoming unaffordable for people.
Yeah. Well, and what we have now, the dynamic of the baby boomers aging in, is that all these crises are hitting as the population is growing by 40% between 2010 and 2040. In New York
Right.
City, it'll go from 1 million to 1.4 million people. And that also tips the dependency ratio, what percentage of people are caregivers and what percentage of people are now needing care.
Right. Well, yeah, but these percentages are getting huge. I remember, like, even for me when I was looking for services for my husband, I have to tell you, it was difficult,
Yep.
especially in a city like New York. Everyone just assumes you can start hiring people at $25 an hour. All right. Those hours start to add up. All right. An 8-hour day is $200, right? God forbid the person that you're caring for has something like dementia. 8 hours a day certainly doesn't do it. So I feel like in a city that's got so much money, the money's not being earmarked in the correct areas because we're not you said it, that we're dealing with the boomers now and their
Yeah,
age.
you're never really going to be able to have government solve these issues. Some of it's going to have to come from the community. I mean, the other major thing that we're dealing with is the collapse of the long-term care industry,
Right.
because the actuarial numbers that they created 30 years ago just don't fit the profile anymore. It's used to be people worked until they were 65, retired, had like 4 or 5 years of not doing much, and then died, and that is just not the case anymore.
Right.
So there's not enough money. A lot of folks who have long-term care insurance have had caps imposed on them, which doesn't work. When you
Right.
look at the cost.
Well,
And
I
then
know I had it on myself, and the premiums went so high I had to just get rid of it. I
yeah,
had it on my husband, and that is what I used to get him AIDS, when he was failing the last 2 years. But it was in the beginning very precarious because I had to lay out of my own pocket. I think it was $1,500 to kick the policy into place. Why, if you're paying into a policy, right, all this time, should you have to do something like that? Number one. Number two, myself and we can't even afford long-term care insurance. That's out of the question.
yeah, and government provided is just so insufficient. They in New York State, Cuomo, before he left, changed the system so that anyone who any nonprofit who's providing home care attendance has to do it through an MLTC, a managed
What is
long-term
it? What is an MLTC?
managed long-term care. So these are for-profit companies that have no transparency at all, and they decide on what the care will be, how many hours of care you can get. And they also set the salary caps. And so the nonprofits, when this went into effect, a lot of them had to cut the salaries that they were paying their folks, and all the folks left. So that's the other problem in the industry, is that the workers are leaving because they can't live on, what's being paid.
They need a living wage is what, absolutely. So we have an issue here. We've got an aging population. Okay. And we've got people that are not getting paid what they should be getting paid to take care of the aging population. In the LGBTQ community, we have an aging population with not necessarily someone to help take care of them. So where does that leave us as people?
So part of the other issue about trying to create LGBTQ senior housing is it's illegal to do set-asides for LGBTQ people. We are not considered a suspect class under the Fair Housing Act. So it's illegal to set apartments aside for LGBTQ people. That's discrimination.
But okay, so here's my question. I'm sure if anyone who's listening would have this too. We were able to do that for people that had HIV or AIDS or mental illness. We could set aside apartments for them.
Right. And that's the same with veterans. You can't do a veteran set aside unless you have fully supportive services. Right. So in an instance where the qualification requires supported services, generally you can do set asides.
Right. So again,
we have a veterans program because it was one of the few ways that we could start doing set asides.
So you set up a veterans program.
Yeah, we have a program called Leave No Veteran Behind. And we just got our New York Community Trust gave us a 2-year grant, and they just renewed it for another 2 years. So we house a lot of veterans, not all LGBTQ folks. Like that's all of our services are available to everyone. But we feel by centering LGBTQ people in the planning and execution of it, our needs will not be ignored. So right now we've housed like 34 veterans in the last 2 years, and 16 of them are LGBTQ. And then in the second phase, we're going to bring it up to 25 LGBTQ older adult veterans with fully supported services. But boy, what a fragile population. Those people have been through the mill.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. And they need all the support services that go with it.
Well, and almost to a person, they don't apply for the services. There's a disability benefit called service-connected benefits, and that you go through a process, and if you have a disability, PTSD or whatever, it's evaluated, and a percentage number is assigned to it for what percentage of your disability is actually related to your military service. And it can be up to $3,000 a month. 100% is $3,000 a month on top of your pension, on top of your Social Security. It doesn't affect any of your other benefits. Almost to a person, the LGBTQ veterans have not applied for it.
Wow.
That's one of the first things we do with them, and that's a year or two process.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, because you always get turned down. It's like Social Security. You always get turned down the first time, and then you have to go back.
Right. Social Security disability, you get turned down. Listen, regular Social Security, I had to apply. My husband's benefits were higher than mine. I just went through the whole process. Medicare tells you, oh, you'll automatically get the higher amount. No, there was no automatic anything. And let's see, it was 2 phone calls of being on hold for over an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Then being told that they were going to call me. Nobody calls you, by the way, when they tell you they're going to. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and go down to the Social Security office. But here's what I found when I got there. Besides it being packed, a lot of the people there, I felt so sorry for. They had no idea the questions to ask.
Right.
A number of them were disabled. So here you are, you're disabled. You don't know what questions to ask. Nothing is really clear. And you're hauling your butt down to the Social Security office. So, my problem was like small potatoes compared to what I saw down there. I have to tell you, it's disgraceful that people are being treated that way.
Yeah. And I had full-blown AIDS in 1995. I had 1.5 million viral load. I had like 20 T cells left. I had PCP pneumonia. I was one of the first people that actually survived the PCP.
That is amazing.
Yeah. But so, I went on Social Security disability, but I started, interning right away and working for free because retirement's a bore if you don't have a lot of money.
Right.
But getting back into the workforce, they make it so hard. It's so difficult. And I finally did all my ticket to work months, and says there's this very sort of arcane procedure that you have to follow. And then they said, they're going to deposit the money in your account for another 2 or 3 months after you cancel. Don't spend that. You have to give it back. And, like you tell a poor person, we're putting $1,500 in your account, don't spend it. So after 3 months, I wrote them, I called them, I wrote them, I called them. 11 months later, I canceled my bank account to make it stop. There was nothing I could do to get them to stop paying me.
This is just, I wish that's it's unbelievable, but it's not. I mean, what I went through was around and around like that, but nowhere near. So did they ask you eventually to give the money back?
Yes. I eventually had to pay it back.
After
Absolutely.
15 months. And this was all because, just clarify for me, you had been getting services and then you wanted to go back to work and stop the services?
I told them to stop the payments, and they said
you wanted to work.
Yeah. And I was working. So yeah. That was huge. They let me pay it off $15 a month. So, it was a few years of that. So there's a lot standing against us being able to do this successfully.
Right.
So we started because of an incident that happened to a friend of ours, Eleanor Cooper, who was a famous lesbian activist. She started the Coalition for Lesbian Gay Rights, which got all the groups to stop fighting and finally passed the gay rights bill in New York City.
Wow.
She had had a stroke. She was in a wheelchair. She was homeless. She was couch surfing with a lot of us. And she ended up in a nursing home. And her partner, Jay Callio, came in one night and found a nurse's aide assaulting her vagina, pounding her, and saying horrible things about what she does with her vagina and stuff. And she ended up dying because her bed sores got into the wounds from the attack, and nothing ever happened to the nurse's aide.
That is such a horrific story, and nothing happened.
So that was our organizing impetus. Sure. I was in arts culture policy. I had no idea about housing. So we started this in 2013, and the first thing we did was research. We did desk research around the country, other cities that had tried, mostly failed to do it, to build LGBTQ senior housing, mainly because of the Fair Housing Act and the imposition of lotteries. And then we did key informant interviews with policymakers and government folks here. And then we did the first ever citywide survey of LGBTQ senior housing needs. We put together a community partner network of electeds and service organizations. And we needed 500 responses, and we got 966. So we got a very robust report out of that survey. And basically, one of the things that survey told us was we needed to focus a little more on aging in place, that was what people really wanted to do.
Right. They want to stay at home, age in place. But now we're back to how do they pay the rent? And if they need services, how do they get an aid?
How do they navigate those 3 flights of stairs that have never been a problem for them?
Thank you. Right.
So, and each person's situation is different. So part of our ethos at the very beginning we established was that we wanted to be able to help people with whatever situation they were facing, whatever resources they had at hand, and help them to their best possible solution. Really treat each case as an individual case, which has really informed our work and kind of put us at the top of the heap in terms of what we do. So we started an online community called Stonewall Village NYC, and we couldn't get anyone to use it. And the way we did the rollout was we went to these 5 different senior centers once a month and like pitched to people why they should get used to being able to interact online, for when they couldn't get to the center.
That's tough, Paul. I'm listening to what you're saying. I think that's really an ambitious goal, but that's tough.
It was tough. And then COVID hit. So 3 months in, COVID hit. We went from 120 to 1,200 users in 2 weeks.
Amazing.
And we trained 700 seniors. We helped the centers recreate their programming as online programming. We hosted it. We did all the tech supervising, and we didn't ask them for a penny because nobody had any money. We knew that they did.
Now this is like you're making it seem like it just happened overnight. How did you go about doing this? How did you get all those seniors online? We're
There,
talking about people that, didn't do this before.
there were two of us. We trained 700 people.
Wow.
It was a crisis, and we worked our asses off.
Right.
And we still do programming. We create the LGBTQ content for Self-Helps in Livio, which is 20,000 people. And we still do programming with the 5 senior centers that we've been working with all along.
That you have been working with, right?
Yeah.
And these 700 people that you trained, they were all younger people that had to be trained how to work with seniors to get them online?
No, they were the seniors.
Hmm?
We had to train the seniors. There were 700 seniors that we trained.
I just am completely blown away because am I being naive thinking a lot of them had no experience being
No,
on?
it was very difficult. It was very difficult and time consuming. And we did them in groups, so when you would get one person in the group who just couldn't get it, to save their lives. But,
Right.
Everybody figured it out because that was all they had. They were, stuck in their homes.
Yeah.
So
That's an outcome of the pandemic, by the way, that if you weren't here on this show talking about it, people wouldn't know it. I think that is absolutely brilliant.
thanks. So yeah, and that online prowess helped us in a lot of other ways too. So we had been we knew we wanted to do the sort of standard community development corporation work of helping people find housing and understanding tax credits and marketing agents and helping people get past rejections and stuff like that. So we were doing it for free in this housing ambassador program through HPD, and then they got a grant to pay a couple of nonprofits to do it, and we won one of those grants. And 3 days into that, the lockdown happened. So
it's everything in life, isn't it?
We were ready, so we finished all of our deliverables in our first quarter, and none of the other nonprofits had done anything, had gotten anything.
Wow.
So they had us train the other nonprofits how to do it. And so when this emergency housing vouchers bill came from the feds in a COVID response, 7,000 additional vouchers in New York City. And so they created a really smart program of navigators. So a navigator is a person who acts as the ombudsman and makes sure that with all the different bureaucrats a person has to deal with, if a bureaucrat drops the ball or something falls through the cracks, clients cannot navigate it. And so that has made brokers really unwilling to deal with folks with vouchers because it can, get very messy and stupid. So we started,
because I want to stop you as you go, because these are terminologies, not only me who knows everything, I've not heard of these. I love the name navigators because I've been thinking just what I went through myself and what my husband went through accessing benefits. It would be so great to have a person, a navigator that you can call up and say, hey, I'm hitting a wall.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
Social Security brought me to tears, I have to tell you.
Made me almost a little.
So
that navigator program, 100% utilization of those 7,000 vouchers. It was incredibly successful. And we have such an aggressive team, and we have really good relationships with brokers because we actually see people through the lease up, which most groups don't. Most groups, as soon as they get the yes from the landlord, they're out of the process. So the brokers really got to like us. There were 7,000 vouchers, 21 different contractors, and our team moved 1,100 of those vouchers with 20 other groups in the mix.
Wow.
So New York City Housing Authority decided they wanted to create a navigator program for their ongoing Housing Choice Vouchers program. And they called HPD, Housing Preservation Development, and said, we want to work with a group that can teach us how to do this and help us get an RFP ready. So we got
what's an RFP?
A request for proposals. Sorry.
Okay. That's
so
okay.
When they decide they're going to do a program, please, when I'm very acronym heavy.
No, that's okay. I'm a question asker. I want to know everything. So
good,
yeah.
Good. So we got a no bid, no process contract for $1.8 million handed to us to help them figure this out. And they just renewed that contract through next August. So I think we'll have that as a bread and butter for a long time. So we do the veterans housing, we do housing city referrals to us, and then we also just do people who wander in and have issues. We try and help them figure out what's going on.
You do try and help them.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like right now, I'm helping a couple in New Jersey because they're in Jersey City and there are no resources in Jersey City. And this guy's like 24 hours a day with his husband who has severe dementia, and he's going crazy. So no, we'll always try and help if we can, and that sets us aside from other groups as well. So we have that community development shingle hung up, but then we also have been trying to develop strategic ways to be able to create LGBTQ senior housing. So one of the projects, we just changed our articles of incorporation to go statewide. We were restricted to New York City before by our bylaws, and now we're going statewide because we're working on a project with ArtSpace out of Minneapolis to build an artist live work studios retirement community in the Hudson Valley.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. It's like Westbeth, right? But you're taking it and putting it that's incredible.
And you're not allowed to build for artists in New York City because when lawyers couldn't get into the co-ops because nobody wanted lawyers in their co-ops, they passed a law that you can't discriminate based on occupation in New York City.
Right.
So, but in New York State, you can set aside for artists. So, we're figuring artists are either queer or allies generally.
Right.
So that fits the bill for us in terms of who's going to be coming in. And we're going to have a high-end spa that will fund the stuff, but also be available to the residents 1 day a week, fully staffed. And then we are going to have a functioning research laboratory on arts and dementia, where folks who want to be teaching artists and keep working, retire but want to keep working can work as teaching artists, but also residents who come to need dementia care will have that as a resource.
Which is more and more people.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Well, how do you pay for this? First of all, these ideas are amazing. I'm amazed at the stuff you're telling me. How do you pay for all of this?
Well, so in that one, we can actually use tax credits and not have. So in the city, if we use tax credits, then we automatically can't do LGBTQ set-asides.
Right.
So that funding, so we can use tax credits and syndicate tax credits, and ArtSpace will actually do all of that syndication and financing for us. And then once the tax credits have amortized in 20 years, they will turn the building over to us to own, or the complex.
What an incredible plan, I mean,
that's my exit strategy. I'm 66. When I turn 70, I want to hand these corporations off and go run that project as the artistic director. That's my goal.
There was something I read online that was very interesting to me, that LGBTQ couples that do have money have no one to leave their assets to.
Right.
How do you play into that?
So the two big programs that we're getting ready to launch are called the Stonewall Bridge and the Community Properties Portfolio. So the idea is that we have an LGBTQ older adult community with a shared lived experience of fighting oppression, which unfortunately is surfaced all over again.
Oh my God, yeah.
We have a history. I had a meeting with a group from Florida today. It's just nuts how secretive they have to be, very secretive about what they're doing. It's crazy.
We never thought we'd see this. And the turn of events in the last couple of days, it's like, it feels like it's escalating out of control. I mean, I'm sure you've been on Facebook. You see all our friends putting their dual passports up. The amount of people that I'm talking, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere, but I know a number of people that are like, they've just had it and they don't feel safe here. You and I are talking about creating safe spaces for the LGBTQ plus community. People don't feel safe here.
Yeah, even in the streets of New York now, a friend of mine just got really harassed the other day. It was like the second time in a couple of weeks.
What happened?
He got really harassed by a redneck, and in this very peculiar kind of way of pointing him out to, this guy pointed my friend out to his family. Look at this. This is an example, blah, blah, blah. Like talking like he wasn't there. It's this very strange dynamic of arrogance.
Bizarre.
Yeah. So the need for safe spaces is going to become more and more pronounced. Right. So the idea of the Stonewall Bridge is we have this shared lived history. We have also a history of building networks of care and support for ourselves, like we did with the AIDS crisis where we created basically our own healthcare system access.
Absolutely.
And then we also have creativity, we have resilience, and we have a whole lot of baby boomers with appreciated real estate assets, no one to take care of them and no one to inherit their assets. And that's the community formula. So the idea is that someone can offer their home to us, or a portion of the value of their home, live in it until they pass on a annuity, a charitable donation.
Yeah, it's like an annuity. Yeah.
And know that when they pass, their home is passing into our community property portfolio to be held in deed restricted permanent affordability and operated as senior housing.
Right. And then you would find, say it was a house, you would find a few people to move into the house. Would it be a community house?
It all depends. Each situation is different. And so the share givers. So the flip side of this is that there are a lot of LGBTQ millennials with no career path and no path to equity. So the idea is we do workforce development with them, create a super awesome LGBTQ home care, team, pay them higher than industry standard, and then also allow them, if they stay with us long enough, to vest shares in the equity that the growing community property portfolio is generating.
I mean, this is such an incredible. This is how like BlackRock and all of them operate, and I love your application of it.
Yeah, and it really is. You're very astute to make that comparison, because basically it is just taking the for-profit middleman out. Right.
And seeing direct results from, and actually what's different, you're putting it where it's really needed.
Yeah. And offering also, right now there is a 70 million, now they're saying 90 trillion rather, sorry, wealth transfer from baby boomers to their children. It's called the Great Wealth Transfer. It's happening now. And so part of what we're trying to do is to give LGBTQ folks a mechanism for participating in that.
Right. Exactly.
The chosen family rather than biological family.
Right. But for so many people, I have a huge amount of I have chosen family incredible. They're absolutely incredible.
Right.
And what could be better than being able to do that for the person while they're still alive, to know that when they're gone, I can think of the friends I've had that have been very financially secure, and they knew they were going to pass, and the dilemma was, it going to go to the horrible nephew? Where right? Well, everyone seems to have a horrible nephew. Where is it going to go?
If I can generalize about, as an older gay man, older gay men, they're not great about thinking about aging. It's kind of not.
Yeah, and I'm in the entertainment world. That world is not. But you know what? Forever young, isn't that how, and you know what? I'm not taking it on about you and me. Let's just talk about society. It is shoved down our throat every day that you can't get old. It's not good. Oh my God, we're all going to live forever. Look at how much longer, this one I love. Look at how much longer people are living. That's true. Look at how much sicker people are while they're living. And having just lost a husband who lived 2 years with lung cancer, who died from immunotherapy, not lung cancer. He died from the treatment, gave him pneumonia. Look at the fact that it cost them, that little experiment, $32,000 a month to keep him going. And all the people that were in the support group online that I met on Facebook all over the world that were on immunotherapy, right? They have this new way. It's great. They can keep you alive. And there's people living 4 and 5 years with it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying the numbers are staggering what is costing. And at the end of the day, how is all this going to be paid for?
Right. And also, what's the quality of life?
Right.
It's one thing to keep living, but at a certain point, yikes.
Right. Exactly. But I think, with what you're talking about, you are really addressing all of that to make it as good as you possibly can for people as they are getting older. I know the housing thing. I'm sure a lot of your friends are like mine. They're all in rent stabilized apartments. And every time the thing happens where the landlord
Oh, yeah.
sells the building, or there's stuff going on and you're living in the building and something's not right, but you don't know what it is because it's not being you. That is freaking terrifying. And you're in your 60s and maybe you got some health issues going on. Maybe you don't. But you know what? That's the house that you've lived in the last 30 to 40 to 50 years. It's terrible that they can just dump people. I don't think they do this in other places.
It's a weird combination because New York is generally thought of as having strong tenant protections, but sometimes they're just so wacky. I mean, there's the 30-day issue. If somebody is in your home for 30 days, they can basically claim residency.
No, I know that, right?
And so it really, really hurts our ability to do home shares.
Right. Well, you get a crazy roommate, you could be like, you can't get them out.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's people going on Airbnbs and then just refuse to leave. I mean, it's
right.
The law here is a little nuts in that respect. And that's different than almost anywhere else.
Wow. So what are your goals going forward?
So we are creating a new corporation, a second one, to be able to work nationally. So the goal is to create this model, figure out how it works, create the templates for it, and then and we're still, and it will be different because every jurisdiction is different. Every jurisdiction has its own rules and methods. And then you have the environments, like this group I was talking to today are in Gainesville, Florida. They don't have a community center. They have like one bar for the whole city.
And by the way, Gainesville used to be one of the most progressive places in the world. When I was in college, that's where everybody wanted to go to school. All right. So now what you're telling me is horrifying.
No, it's still a blue dot in a very red area. And the red area has just become so insane.
Well, the red area has become so big and so powerful, and then you have a tiny blue dot,
Yeah. So I think the goal is to one of the goals is to get people used to the idea that they should plan, and that it's not a horrible process. It's actually quite liberating to just figure it out and have it done and have a plan. So
if you were I'm going to be devil's advocate. If you were talking to someone in our community, say early 60s, right? You'd say to them, you need to have a plan. What would that plan entail?
So the first thing I do is I steer them to our website where we have the Stonewall Bridge survey. And the survey's for anyone 45 or over. And it's incredibly clarifying to take it.
Okay.
Because it gets you to think about things you haven't thought about.
Don't want to think about, right?
Not only the things that the issues you might have to deal with, but what are your preferences? Do you want to live in a community of only gay people? Do you want to live in a community that's segregated as seniors? Do you want, and so and a lot, I mean, some of the answers are just stunning. The responses, you can see the first results from the first 260 people who took it. And very uniform answers. So I think there were 136 gay LGBTQ folks in the first, or maybe 170 in the first summary. But when they ask the question, I feel strongly that my children will take care of me, 81% say no. And that's straight and gay. It's not just gay folks. The one I thought was, are you willing to consider using the value of your home if it would help you stay in place? Overwhelmingly, yes, which we didn't really.
That's a great question. I have a reason for asking you all of this. I have a reason for saying, what's the plan? Because this is really quite incredible what I'm hearing.
And so this also helps us with funders. Like one of the people that was on the call this morning was a community foundation woman. She was like, this is amazing. The idea has legs, that the community can generate its own home and healthcare system.
And what else do you tell them in the plan? When you sit down, you say you need to have a plan. Do you talk about wills? Do you talk about insurances? What are the aspects?
Tax and estate planning. And there's some things that people just don't know, the qualified distributions
Right.
that you end up having to make, you
Right.
know, but you can make them before the age 72 and they carry great tax benefits. So, just getting people to understand that some of these options are really advantageous for you.
You're like a financial planner for the LGBTQ plus community. It is, because I've taken all these courses, like, just to educate myself, and it's done nothing but confuse me even more.
So,
The reality of it, when you're in it, I mean, honestly, what I went through for Social Security, it was a little more, it wasn't a ton more, but I jumped through hoops. And the fact that Medicare can tell you, oh, you automatically get your husband's, and most of the people I talk to, oh, Wendy, why are you running back and forth with Social Security? You automatically get that. There is no automatic anything.
yeah. And I mean, the thing too is, so like one of the, when we deal with folks who have housing vouchers, and a lot of them have been through the mail and stuff, but we show them, we ask them what they need, where they're looking, and we show them apartments that meet those criteria that they've given us.
Right.
And if they turn down like 3 of them, we are obliged to discharge them from our caseload. So we're always saying to them, get a home, get into a house. This voucher is portable with you. You can change your mind and go somewhere else, but don't get homeless, because once you don't have a home, it's impossible to operate. It's impossible for people to get hold of you. It's impossible to on communications. So, and that's really the same thing. The worst time to be trying to figure out a system is when you're in crisis.
Right. My God, you are just like a treasure trove of information. How many caseloads do you have right now?
Between the programs, about 300.
300 people that you're helping.
Yeah.
That is really great. And it could easily, as we all know, go to 3,000.
Not with this staff. But so we're now very focused on creating this new corporation. And we're incredibly fortunate that the white shoe law firm Weil Gotshal has decided to give us a pro bono legal team. So they have assigned 7 lawyers and 3 partners to help us make this happen. So I'm really pretty sanguine that it's gonna.
That's very, very exciting. And the fact that it's pro bono, it's damn, you're like the Pied Piper. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to get on board.
Now, finally, yeah. We were whistling in the wind for 6 years, but now we've got a lot of traction.
Right. But you know what? You had the wherewithal to stick with it. It's interesting to me because I know you do come from an arts culture background.
I do.
So right. How much of that are you applying? Well, you are applying it to this because you're going to create the artist space up.
I'm getting back to it. That's going to, but we had a fundraiser last night and I sang at it. So I just never really let that go.
Wow. And Paul, I didn't even know that you sang. So there you go. I learned something every day. So we're really down to the wire here.
That's good.
It goes really, really quick. I know I could do it for 2 hours. My God, we could do a whole course. After reading your website, we could do a whole course on every aspect of it. And
can I encourage people to go to the website?
Yes. Tell everyone your website right now.
Yeah, it's stonewallcdc.org.
That's stonewallcdc.org.
And look up the programs, find the Stonewall. There it is. Find the Stonewall Bridge and take the survey. It helps us build the profiles, but it also is incredibly clarifying.
And doesn't it also, wait, I'm going to take a picture because doesn't it also help with getting grants and things like that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, say cheese. I want to get that Stonewall in there too. Okay. This has been so informative. I can't even begin to tell you. You see, I go to a birthday party where everyone's from Burning Man and I meet you. And this is why this is my message for tonight. You have to put yourself out there. Paul, I want to just thank you for being you, for caring to the degree that you care. Is it okay for me to go take that survey?
Absolutely. Everyone should take it.
I'm gonna. Yeah, it's gonna make me worry though and stuff.
No, we started our first Stonewall Bridge project is probably going to be in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous there.
That's what I'm hearing. They found out about us and contacted us, and we've been socializing with them for about a year.
Wow.
And what was I going to say about that?
About Asheville.
Yeah, I forget.
North Carolina, that they've been, your first project is going to be, your
outside. And wow. You know what? The old age.
Oh,
like down a hole.
Well, look at Paul. At least you know where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. I have a strategy.
You have your strategy and you have your plan. And anyone who's listening out there, listen to Paul Nagle. You need to have a plan. Yes, it was.
I remember what I was going to say.
Yes,
we have conversations about death, and
he talks about death.
And at first, it was like so hard, and now it's just wonderful. It's
where do you have conversations?
Online, in chat rooms like this.
Wow.
And so I really want to get a death doula, working with us, because if you can demystify that, there's so much progress to be made.
Do you know, I've been saying this since March. Do you know I've had over 60 people call me to say, what do you need? And not one of them could give me what I needed, because this resource is not really out there. I heard death doula speak over at the Greenwood Cemetery. We need to just take the gloves off about people passing. Me, who knows everyone, I still cannot get a support group. All I wanted was a live support group. That's all I wanted. And somebody said to me, Wendy, look at all the people that have lifted you up. Your chosen family and your family is your support group. And that has proved to be true. But I think of all the people that don't have that. Right. So on that note, my God, please stay in touch with me, because I love what you're doing.
Well, you're going to be out in Fire Island this summer, yeah?
No, I missed the invasion in the Pines.
I was there. I was cotton candy.
You were cotton candy. I didn't realize that you. Wow. I miss the invasion of the Pines. I'd love to go out again. I hope that there's a chance in August. We'll see. I'm busy with a whole bunch of events this summer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody who tuned in. We'll see you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.